Namaste.
Namaste to you, Mr. Marco.
Very happy to have you here with us.
Thank you for inviting me to your TV network.
Thank you very much. Hoje nós teremos uma entrevista em inglês, que vai ter legendas, e hoje então teremos... perdi, sorry. Vou só avisar que vai ser em inglês, tá?
Não, acho necessário não.
Não?
Não. Porque
Tá.
vai ter tradução.
Já vai ser
Aí depois
direto,
sabe
né?
Se vai ser legenda, se vai ser tradução.
Ah, tá bom, tá. So let's start again, sorry. Olá, telespectadores da TV Suprem. Hoje é mais um Papo Suprem... Não, muito ruim. Olá, telespectadores da TV Suprem. Esse é mais um Papo Suprem, em que recebemos um convidado muito importante, que muito nos honra com sua presença hoje, Dr. Shankara. Dr. Shankara, namaste.
Namaste, Mr. Marco.
Thank you very much for you having us.
Thank you for inviting me to your television station. Appreciate this.
Thank you very much. Dr. Shankara is a very renowned physicist and a spiritual teacher. And he will be talking to us a little today about his teachings, his principles, and his history. So, Dr. Shankara, what is the spiritual path you were teaching?
My path is, I like to call it the path of understanding. And usually this path bears a different name. It's called Jnana Yoga, which is the path of knowledge. But I think that's a very misleading term. And understanding would be a correct term for it. So this is the path of understanding of the self and understanding of the divine. That is the path.
And how does it manifest, this path? What are the ingredients of this path? How can one reach this?
As Krishnamurti says, the soil in which the meditative mind has to begin is the soil of everyday strife, the fleeting pleasure and the pain. It must begin from there and it must move endlessly. And the way for this is you have to start watching the self. All the time we are watching the world, we are totally engrossed in our sensory perceptions, and we are seeking sensory gratification. And the sensory gratification continues till there is tremendous pain, which is a concomitant of the pleasure of sensory gratification. So when the pain comes, we are very disturbed. And then we probably go to a master and a guru, and the guru will ask us probably to start looking at ourselves, become introspective. And then we start learning about ourselves, how the little self is full of mischief, it is full of self-deception, it is based on ignorance, and it is based on a desire nature. So you start learning, and then after a time the self completely subsides with all its activities, and then there is an awareness of the divine, and the divine becomes real for you.
And can that be reached through knowledge, or there must be meditation in order to see the higher self? How is it accomplished? Or one goes with the other?
One goes with the other. One has to start, one has to get into the water not knowing how to swim. And then you start observing the self, and then you come to a state through relentless continuous observation. And the hallmark of this observation is that there should be no effort, there should be no judgment, and there should be no criticism, there should be no condemnation of yourself. So you must have tremendous compassion for yourself. So as you keep watching, then the activities of the self subside, and then there is learning. You start getting insights about yourself, and when the turbulent activity of the self subsides, then that's a new chapter in the life of the self. It becomes aware of the divine, and it begins to seek the divine, and it will find the divine.
In this world of ours, which information goes almost as fast as thought, one thing happens and the other side of the world gets the news instantly.
Yes.
decisions have to be made in such a hurry, and so many decisions in our private lives even. How can we reflect when this is our context, when we do not have time to think through important decisions that goes and have impacts through the whole of our lives? How can we pursue this utter observation and reflection towards ourselves when we have to act so instantly?
Acting instantly is almost an effortless thing once you learn the art and the skill of watching yourself, choiceless awareness, as the Master Krishnamurti calls it. And you don't decide anything. You actually you have so much of clarity that at any given moment you know exactly what is the right step to take, and there is never confusion, there is never doubt, there is never an afterthought whether what you have decided is right or wrong. None of those things, absolutely none of those things.
Yeah. This is very
There
comforting.
is only clarity at any given moment, and you never decide. So the whole business of within quotations decision making, which is such a problematic thing for people, so long as they are living in the mind, that doesn't exist for the person for whom the consciousness has completely stopped its mad activity.
I heard once that the mind is as a crazy monkey let loose inside a house.
Of course.
So how can that decide anything?
Exactly. So it must make only chaotic decisions, and you see everywhere chaotic decisions being made, even in governments. And
very true.
And all decisions are made on self-gratification and what I will get out of something, out of a deal. What do I get? And that's such a silly approach to the complex problem of living. And you've got to be more spontaneous, and you've got to meet life with awareness, with no thought.
Very true, very true. And something that has intrigued me, have you got a guru, a living guru in India?
Of course. I was given a spiritual initiation at the age of 14 by my guru, Sri Bhagavan. But I come from a family where the family was very deeply connected to the Master Krishnamurti. And so my guru and my mother, they initiated me into Krishnamurti's teachings. And there was a life crisis for me at a certain point. And then, so Krishnamurti's teachings became internalized. They became absolutely real. They entered into my blood, my breath, my bones. And so that happened to me thanks to my master, Sri Bhagavan, and thanks to my mother, who knew Krishnamurti very personally for almost 70 years. Because she knew him from the age of 6.
Oh, that's a privilege. That's very meritorious.
That's a privilege, yes.
Yes, that's very good.
And therefore, I have also spoken to Krishnamurti, been with him, and so have a direct feeling of what the Master is like, and that has helped me a great deal in my life.
That must be very different from only getting to know the thoughts and books.
Absolutely.
So this direct contact, how important is this? Because this is something so far from us here in the West, and although it is a very present thing in India, there are so many gurus, so many incredible spiritual figures. So how can one in the West search for this kind of inner experience, as you said you had, if we do not have direct contact with such gurus and such illuminated figures? How can we search this?
You can search it. Initially, a friend may give you a certain guidance or make a certain teaching available to you. For example, in my case, it's not that my guru Sri Bhagavan and the Master J. Krishnamurti, through whose teachings, assimilation of whose teachings, I got the first major breakthrough in life. But that was not that did not take me through the complete stretch of the spiritual journey. So I had to look for further light, and I got the light from the teachings of the master Nisargadatta Maharaj, another Indian master who is no more on the physical plane, and also the master Ramana Maharshi. I was not fortunate to meet these two masters, Nisargadatta Maharaj and Ramana Maharshi, in flesh and blood, and only the teachings. And I was introduced to Ramana Maharshi by my guru, Sri Bhagavan, when I was 14. We went to the ashram of Ramana Maharshi, but Ramana Maharshi was not alive at that time, he had passed off. And so only the teachings were available, and I took the teachings, and because already the soil was tilled for me by the Upadesha given by my master Sri Bhagavan and the teachings of the master J. Krishnamurti, so I could drink the nectar of the teachings of the master Nisargadatta Maharaj and Ramana Maharshi because of the foundational work already done with my guru and with the master J. Krishnamurti. So only the teachings also will help, but you have to turn inward, and the spiritual life begins by turning inward. And if you don't turn inward and then you are still with the teaching or even with the living master, it will not help.
It will be only
It will be a
company
blind
or
following.
concepts.
Only concepts, only blind following, and you have no clarity yourself, and the light is outside you and you never see that you are the light.
Nós vamos fazer breve intervalo e já voltamos. Fique aí que a gente vai continuar essa maravilhosa conversa. Já voltamos. It's only a small break.
Okay.
Podemos? If you want, you can. See, if you want, you can speak broadly about an issue. Feel absolutely free to talk as you want.
Okay, thank you.
It doesn't have to be so many questions. You can speak whatever you want.
Thank you. That gives me. Thank you for the freedom.
You're absolutely free.
Thank you. That's very important for me because I got to express myself and make my path clear.
Yes.
Because so many people are going to be watching this.
I understand.
And my responsibility to them as well.
And so we will have 2 recordings.
Okay.
And so we have plenty of time. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Marcos.
Estamos agora de volta com Dr. Shankara, Shri Shankara para alguns, importante professor de astrologia védica e de um caminho espiritual muito importante, que hoje nos honra muito com sua presença. Estamos aqui conversando sobre sua vida, sobre seus ensinamentos, sobre seus mestres. So, Shri Shankara, would you tell us a little about how Krishnamurti, how he touched your life, this inner moment that you said you had this major event in your life, and his teachings entered your blood, your soul, and entered yourself.
Yes.
How was that experience?
Okay.
Can it be described?
Of course, it can be described. For me, I was a very ambitious student in the university. I was doing my master's course, and to survive in the university and get very good grades and learn the subjects, because the subjects, theoretical physics in which I was interested, the subject was a very difficult subject, calling for a lot of abstract thinking, and you got to do the course in a short span of 2 years, the master's course. And this was very challenging because you got to continuously think, and you can't do anything else. You can't help your parents, and you can't attend to the troubles of the self, but you got to just keep thinking and thinking very sanely and rationally and powerfully so that you complete the course. Now, this was, as I said, this was difficult, and conflict developed at that stage, conflict, because the self wanted to be left alone, and here the self was in a grind, and it had to be continuously studious and continuously learning and continuously absorbing, and therefore the academic thing turned out to be too much of a load. And that was also the years when I was 21, 23 at that time. I was entering fully into the world of manhood, and had to contend with the sexual force which gets awakened at that time. And in India, which is an extremely inhibited society, where men and women cannot be free with each other, men and women are segregated. To understand the force of sex, why it exists and what to do with it, and these are issues which are difficult for every human being, but they are particularly difficult for the Hindus and more difficult for the Brahmins. I come from a Brahmin community which is dedicated to truth and to the spiritual life and to God, and there is so you don't actually, you are ill equipped to deal with the new force which starts erupting in your life, the force of sex, and you have to have a very balanced approach to it and not be attracted by the opposite sex and not become a slave of it. And so I started, my mother introduced me to yoga. I was taken to a yoga teacher and I was introduced to yoga, and that helped me a lot. And then Krishnamurti's teachings was given to me by my master Sri Bhagavan, and then my master asked me to, my master gave me just one sentence, that you've got to observe, you've got to turn inward and look at yourself, and if you don't do it, your life will be a pig's life. So because my master found me too ambitious in physics and not as spiritual as he wanted me to be. So he chastised me and he said, you've got to start looking inward. And so I started looking inward, and I went to a research institute in Bombay, which is one of India's best research institutes, called the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. And there I found that everybody was bright, and therefore my self-image about myself, I thought that I'm very bright and I'm going to do great research. And then I found that everybody is bright, and therefore my self-image was challenged, and it was time for it to collapse. And so therefore I had to start watching, and so that self which was ambitious and which wanted to be a research scientist, that self had to die for peace to come into the heart. And so I was starting a relentless watching, and I came on the path of self-knowing, and that self died completely, and a new self arose. And but mind you, I am in a research institute and I'm expected to do research. So at one point my professors told me that you got to get out of this institute, you're not serious about research. Then I told my professors that this whole institute exists not for becoming, but for real learning, which is what true education is about. And so they gave me some more time, and they said, okay, you must read all this and you must give 6 lectures, and we'll see if you are able to, if you are convinced that you're deeply interested in research, then we will continue you. And so I was able to read those advanced portions and give the lectures. That was an effortless thing for me, because by constant self-observation a new intelligence got awakened, but that intelligence cannot be self-centered.
It was not alone, not anymore the one who entered.
Exactly, not anymore the one who entered with the blinkers on his eyes and with a very narrow perception that I must achieve this goal in a short span of 3 years or 5 years. So this intelligence, so I stopped all effort. There's complete cessation of effort, and I didn't know the divine still. I did not know the divine, because I was only drinking Krishnamurti's teaching, and but the whole of life changed, and the whole of nature changed for me, and but began to live life with no thought, and then found that my entire research work, my doctoral thesis, it just fell into my lap exactly as per my wish, and it was a wish